And we'll get ready to tackle all your NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to join today. That is FanDuel.com/UCSS. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And as I was doing the read, Brian Windhorst popped into the queue, so we are ready to be joined by ESPN's Brian Windhorst, a friend of the program. How you doing today, Windy?
Good morning. How's it going? I guess it's afternoon there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Where are you?
L.A.
Brian, I asked Jason earlier if you were a Tier 1 friend, and he said you were not a Tier 1
I
friend.
didn't say that. That's not at all.
He didn't answer the question. I'll tell you that.
Roll the
He did not
tape.
answer the question.
I'm playing the challenge.
Now, he actually said you're the best. You're the absolute best, but he doesn't see you a
I
lot.
said I adore Brian, but I never
haven't
make
seen
it.
him in a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you? How often do you come to Cleveland these days? Maybe this year you'll come a little. Oh, boy.
I know.
Yeah, go ahead. Maybe you.
I come to Cleveland several times a year. I don't think I actually went to a Cavs game in Cleveland last year. I went to, I think, some games out here in LA because I'm here a lot. But I don't think I made it to a home Cavs game last year. So hopefully this year, playoff run, that can happen.
He had the Rubber Ducks night giveaway here that I'm such a good friend that I forgot. I was going to go.
What was the exact giveaway? I forgot.
Tier 2.
Jason has youth baseball that must be taken care of first.
Oh, well, we're well aware of that.
Football,
I mean, his
baseball,
son's a prodigy.
His son is a
absolutely.
prodigy.
Yeah,
He's a man-child.
and he's got a deeper voice than Jason does.
Yeah.
I think that's true. That's being more masculine than Jason. That's it's not that high of a bar.
Wow. And to think I came in on my day off. That's
You are really good, Jason, in all fairness.
Hey, before we get to more on the Cavs, obviously what happened to the Lakers last night was highly embarrassing. There's a video going around, of course, of Duncan Robinson having the ball underneath, and LeBron and AD are just standing there, and then he kicks it out for a three. And could this be it? As great as LeBron's been, could this be the final year? As Jason just said, man, he's looking old for the first time. What do you think?
He was 12 of 18 last night. He relies on his 3-point shot now a lot more than he ever has because he doesn't have the athleticism to get to the basket as easily. So in half-court settings, he really, really relies on that three. And last year he had his best ever shooting year, shooting the three, shot over 40%. And this year, like those first 15 games, he was shooting a career high. He was shooting like 44, 45%. And the Lakers were looking good. And so he hit a slump, and he just doesn't have the tools in the toolbox anymore in half-court offense to sort of overcome that. And frankly, the Lakers have made a decision to play more half-court offense this year because they want to play more through Anthony Davis. So they've slowed their game down, which actually favors AD but doesn't favor LeBron. So there's a lot of nuance in there. They definitely quit in parts of the game last night, and that was alarming because they were just coming off of a game where they played horribly against the Wolves. And so to have back-to-back bad games like that is, that's another issue. But they have a very flawed roster, and they have elected not to address those roster changes. They made no transactions in the offseason other than drafting Dalton Knecht, who's been a nice addition to them, but is not a transformational player. And so this is who they are. They were a play-in team last year. They're probably going to be a play-in team this year. They've got the same roster. They were not as good as they were when they were 10-4. They are not as bad as they have looked the last couple games. They will settle in between and probably finish between 7-10 in the West and be a play-in team. And when LeBron re-signed with the Lakers last summer, he did two things. One, he knew that the Lakers weren't making material upgrades because he's offered to take less money, and he waited around for a few days, and they didn't do anything. They couldn't get anybody. So he knew when he re-signed this was going to be the roster again, and he signed for multiple years, knowing that he was probably going to give it a couple more and then probably hang it up. So unless he gets injured, I don't see him hanging it up after this year. I still think he's playing at a high level, and I don't think the Lakers are going anywhere, and I don't think that's a surprise to anybody who really follows this team.
Sheesh. Wendy, when we talk about the Cavs here, and obviously the couple losses that they have, one is to Boston, two is to the Hawks, and we've noticed that, those guys have bigger defenders, bigger players. Is that something that the Cavs can overcome to maybe win a championship one day, or do you think the small guard thing is just too hard to overcome?
Yeah, I think that is definitely the Cavs' weakness, is their lack of size on the perimeter. And I think you saw the Hawks definitely go after it. I think the Hawks had two things that they did really well. One, they got great play out of their wings, which they have great size on their wings. The Hawks, by the way, won last night in Milwaukee. The Hawks have beaten the Cavs twice, one in Boston and one in Milwaukee in like the last 2 weeks. That is a better team than their record. And one of the reasons is because they have great size at the wings. And that's something that's gonna bother the Cavs at times. That's an issue with the Celtics. And when the Celtics had their full roster, they were missing two of their best wing guys in the game last weekend. That is something that is a challenge for the Cavs. They, some of the strengths that they have are mitigated by big wings. The other thing was the Hawks were really, really prepared for the Cavs zone defense. I think the Cavs got a couple of good victories earlier in the season when they went to zone in the second half of some games, and some teams weren't ready for it because they've never seen this particular unit play zone. It's not something that was in the J.B. Bickerstaff tool belt, really. And you could tell instantaneously Trae Young knew exactly what to do. He started picking it apart. You could tell that they prepared very well for that zone. So I do think that's going to be a challenge. And I would say this about the Cavs. And Jason just wrote this story, so it's going to sound like I'm cribbing what he said, but he was right. The Cavs are in a window. You should look at this as a potential 2, 3, hopefully even 4-year window where this group of players who are all in their 20s, all signed, all in this core, have sort of multiple bites at the apple. And that's important just because, in the NBA, you have injury variance, you have luck variance that happens, but also because the Boston Celtics are far and away the best team in the East right now. They are a cut above everybody else, including the Cavs, when they're at full power, and even when they're not, because they've got such tremendous top-end talent depth. But I don't think they're going to be able to keep that team together. And it's one of the reasons why that team is for sale right now. I question whether they're going to keep that team together. And so, this is the Knicks play. The Knicks are basically making a bet on the next 3 to 4 years that they can catch and surpass the Celtics. And I think that's kind of the Cavs' bet too, is to try to catch and surpass. But where the Cavs' deficit is definitely on the wings. And, the Knicks paid extremely dearly to trade for OG Anunoby and to trade for Mikal Bridges. If you go look at what they gave up to get those two guys, it was a lot, but they did that for a reason. It's because it's so important to have big wings in today's NBA.
You read what Jason writes?
Smart people do.
I know.
Smart people do.
That's true.
I got one coming for you. You just wait. We ain't there yet, but we're getting there. Actually, your answer segued right into where I wanted to go. And Mike and I talked about this on the Cavs show that we did, and I wanted to write about it here coming up. But I'm curious to get your thoughts. The Cavs very clearly were not planning on being a tax-paying team this year. They wanted to kick that can down the road one more year. They have been so good to this point. Do they have to readjust that, in your opinion? Do they need to go all in now? Is there a move to go all in now and start the repeat offender clock now? Or are they still better off trying to trim that couple of million? And everyone's playing so well, I'm not sure off the top of my head where those couple million come from to get under the line. Do they stick with the original plan and not move into the tax until next year? Or should they push all in now?
This is a really good nuanced question. And, if you're a Cavs fan, you really have to have sort of a next level understanding and appreciation of the nuances of the way the NBA operates to appreciate it. I think if you're a fan, you're saying, no, trade, acquire more pieces, try to win this year. They are 19-3. They have demonstrated that they can win against some of the best teams in the league. Go and try to win. I'm not sure, in a vacuum, Jason, I would try to get out of the tax if I were them. I would try to make a trade where I slice off some salary because, again, I think the best thing for the organization is to play for 3 to 5 years and not play just for this season. And one of the big things in the NBA right now is trading for flexibility. This is one thing that you're going to hear us talk about a lot as we get to the trade deadline, and it's exactly what you don't want to hear if you're a fan who wants your team to upgrade their roster or loves blockbuster trades. Under the new rules, it's so restrictive when you get deep into the luxury tax and when you're in the tax year over year that there are literally going to be teams that make trades where what they get back is flexibility. Like literally the asset that they get back, the return on a trade, is the freedom to make other moves. You're going to see these types of trades happen more regularly. And that, I'm telling you, if the Cavs made a trade going into the deadline that got them under the tax and didn't materially hurt their top 9 guys, I would view that as a good trade deadline, because what they are actually trading for is another year of flexibility before the repeater tax hits, because next year Evan Mobley's contract comes on and Donovan Mitchell's extension kicks in, and Jared Allen's raise kicks in, and that's like a real thing to manage. And but it's very hard to tell a fan who just wants to see them play better tomorrow night that they need to make a trade that helps flexibility in 26, 27, even if that's the right thing for the team. So I do think that's what they should do. And it also depends on what's out there. I don't know if there's going to be much out there for them anyway.
Right.
You know, it's funny, as you say that, I'm, in my head, I'm thinking I get what you're saying. That's the rational thing to do. That's the thinking with your brain. But most fans think with their heart and their guts, and they're watching this saying, no, let's go get Kyle Kuzma or Bruce Brown or somebody like that to make the team better. And I, between the luxury tax and, well, maybe those guys make you better, but not good enough to pass Boston, I guess.
Yeah, if I could just synthesize it to one sentence, because I know it gets very complicated.
Yeah.
It used to be that when you paid a lot of money, all it did was cost your owner money. And the Cavs never cared because Dan Gilbert's got a lot of it. He doesn't mind spending it.
Right.
Now, when you spend a lot of money, it puts you in a straitjacket. It prevents you from altering your roster. And so that was a move put in basically to shut down the Steve Ballmers of the world. And as soon as Steve Ballmer saw what the new rules were, you know what he did? He made moves to get his flexibility back. And so that is something you have to understand as a fan going forward, that it's not them getting out of luxury tax would not be a move to save Dan Gilbert money. And that's something that they're going to have to probably communicate to their fans at some point as well.
And I guess in the end, anybody that they would get, they don't have much to trade at this point. So anybody that they would get is probably not going to make them significantly better. So why would you tie yourself up in that situation when you're not really getting much better anyway? For a tiny boost, it makes a lot of sense, I guess. Yeah.
Right. If you were to come to me in mid-September and say, well, what's the Cavs' move at the trade deadline this year?
Yeah.
I would have said to trade Caris LeVert for an upgrade. But Caris LeVert has been so good that trading Caris LeVert for an upgrade becomes a lot more difficult.
Sure.
And so, go find me that trade where you're trading Caris LeVert and getting an upgrade. And now let's see how he keeps playing. As we get into the trade deadline. But that was the piece that would have been their trade piece. A guy on an expiring contract that makes sort of mid-scale money, a little above mid-scale money. But that hasn't played out that way.
Well, I flippantly said a couple games into the season, just cut. You can just dump Ty Jerome's money. Not now. So right. I don't know how they. I'm sure there's moves out there. I'm thinking maybe Niang. I don't know, and take back a little bit less money. I'm sure there's a move out there, but I don't know.
Yeah.
If you look at their roster, where do you cut $2 million right now, or $3 million?
Well, you could find some savings, like you could find a home for Porter. You don't want to do that, but that's not going to get you there. So, they may not be able to. And the better decision may just be to, if you're going to be a little bit into the tax, you might as well maybe you trade Niang and take on money, because you're saying, okay, well, we can't get into the tax, so let's not be $2 million in the tax, let's get $5 million in the tax. And there may be another team out there that's looking to do the opposite, trying to get out of the tax, and you could take back some money. So maybe that's what they end up doing. But that's a big decision. That tax line is a big decision. Again, it's not just about the actual raw dollar.
And it's not even this year. It's like what, 20 28, 29 season is what you're looking at then as repeat offender. And you're right. Fans don't care about 28, 29 right now. But if this is a team with a chance to win a championship, and
yeah, but let's just talk about Kyle Kuzma as an example, okay? Because you hear the name and you get all excited and whatever. Yeah, there's a trade that exists for Kyle Kuzma, okay? But then you're probably going to take on money in that trade, not just for this year but next year. And now you add that money to next year, and you add all those other things, and now you're flirting with the second apron maybe next year. Yeah. And then that impacts, and does getting that player this year, does that make you 3% better chance to beat the Celtics? Does it make you not? I mean, I'm saying honestly, there was a reason why Kobe Altman left the roster alone over the summer. And it wasn't because he didn't make phone calls. He made the evaluation that sticking with this roster and their asset base right now was the way to go. And I think he's proving to be correct there. So I think that should be a guiding thing when you think about that.
Wendy, let's talk about the Cavs tonight against the Nuggets. Obviously, they got the Joker coming in. What do you think their best way to stop the Joker is? Is it putting Mobley on them, or is it putting Allen on them and having Mobley sag off? How would you defend the Joker tonight?
Well, first off, the Jokic is having. I did not think it was possible for him to win MVP this year, because to win 4 out of 5 when they had a disappointing finish last year, the bar would be too high. He is clearing that bar. He's arguably been the most efficient player in the history of the NBA this year. So when you deal with Jokic, there is no effective way to defend him, which is why his numbers say what they are. I think if you're going to wager, the best thing that you can do is to try to defend the Jokic pass, and basically turn him into a scorer. Because where he kills you is with the pass. And I think the big thing is they just got Aaron Gordon back. He just came back from a shoulder injury. His first game was a couple of days ago against the Warriors. And if you watch the end of that game, he killed the Warriors in the fourth quarter on passes to Gordon. And so what the Timberwolves did last year in the playoffs when they beat the Nuggets was, because they had two bigs, two good-sized bigs in Karl Towns and Rudy Gobert, they put Towns on Jokic, which you'd say Towns is a weak defender. You would say, well, why would you do that? They did it because they were able to put Gobert as the low man, which is basically a backline defender, and we're trying to take away those cuts, those Aaron Gordon cuts. So I think one of the things you should watch tonight, not necessarily in the first quarter, but if it gets close in the fourth quarter, watch how the Cavs deploy Mobley and Allen and who they put on him and who they have backline defend, because you have to defend against Gordon as much as you defend against Jokic. And the other thing is, it's a bit of a math problem. Jokic will read the defense, and if you bring help from somewhere else, he'll just throw to that help. And Christian Brown and Michael Porter Jr. can hurt you from three-point range. And the big swing player is Jamal Murray. When Jamal Murray plays well, the Nuggets almost never lose. But really, I think you have to defend Jokic the passer first. If you can limit him and not have him you can survive Jokic scoring 38. You can't survive Jokic scoring 30 with 15 assists. So that's, I think, going to be their game plan tonight.
I'm curious, as someone who's, I'm in my 50s, I'm 53, and I, of course, grew up with the Celtics, Lakers in the 80s, and I in general, don't find, I'm enjoying the Cavs this year, and I'm having fun watching them. But in general, I don't find the NBA nearly as entertaining, even though the athletes are better, than I did when I was a kid. And there's some sentiment of that in every sport. I get it. But I feel like for people my age and older, that's not a minority. I think there's a lot of people like that. Now, the young fans love guys changing teams and love that it's all threes and dunks. I find it kind of boring. I miss the center posting up back to the basket and stuff. Is that a concern at all for the league, that the entire game now is threes and dunks essentially? Or do they not care about the 50 and older people like me?
Well, I think it should be. I think the league has lost its balance a little bit in that respect. I think the balance of the perimeter players and the interior players is what we're missing. I think they've lost the focus with all the different courts and all the different uniforms. You turn on games and you can't tell who's playing.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of like, they're kind of flexing, like, look at all these courts and look at all these uniforms, and they're sort of having one of those should situations. Just because they can doesn't mean that they should. I do think that it's hurt. I also think that, I've been kind of vocal on this, that the league has become too focused on transactions and criticisms. What's celebrated now in highlights is players getting dunked on and crossed over, as opposed to the stories of players and getting involved in the stories of teams and the stories of players. That we've moved away from that a little bit and sort of chased what tends to trend on social media as opposed to what tends to have texture with people who want to follow the league. And so I don't think that you should eliminate one or the other. I just think, again, that the balance of that is off. It is great to see a guy power dunking on somebody else, but I don't think that can be the centerpiece of a highlight package. And I do feel like I'm yelling at the clouds a little bit because the league just got a $70 billion media rights deal, and when you see that, that indicates that things are going just fine. But I do think that balance could be readjusted.
Brown, my man, this is from my man Tyvis.
Yeah.
My man here loves him some Giannis so much he wants to bear his children someday.
Wow.
Well, there's a woman who's bearing many children for Giannis now, so I think you've missed the. I think she's about to have his fourth child. So Good luck to you.
Well, what is Giannis's future? Because I thought Horst would have been fired by now. Milwaukee was a mess when they were here a few weeks ago. I thought John Horst was in his last days as Milwaukee's GM. They've sort of righted the ship a little bit, but they've got a big Giannis decision coming up. Do you think Giannis is going to be in Milwaukee 2 years from now, a year from now?
I think it's going to go year to year. And I do have to go right after I answer this. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. But I do think, Giannis will go year to year. I think he has said nothing but that he wants to be in Milwaukee. But they've gotten better based on weaker opponents right now. But Giannis is playing amazing. He's arguably having one of the best seasons of his career, if not the best season. He's playing tremendously. But I do think that one of the challenges with Milwaukee is that they've been a contender for like 7 or 8 years. And just the way the league is structured, it's very hard to remain a contender that long. They've sort of lived their life and done their arc. Certainly Cavs fans can understand this. The state of the organization after 4 years of chasing the title with LeBron from 14 to 18 was exhaustion. The organization was depleted of everything. The Milwaukee is depleted. They're $75 million into the tax, and they're paying $75 million in tax. They're in the second apron. They've traded away the swap rights or the actual pick of their next 6 first-round picks. They've traded away their next 6 second-round picks. They are, loaded with all kinds of regulations about whether they can make trades. They're just at the end of a cycle of being a competitor for a very long time. And so, unfortunately, that's with Giannis, who's still in his prime. And so that doesn't exactly match.
They're stuck with Jimmy Haslam as a minority owner.
Yeah,
Thank you, Wendy. We appreciate it, man.
Say hi to the gang for me.
Take care, guys.
Yeah.